And we're back for the last session of today. And we have with us Luca Condosta from ABB. Buonasera, Luca.
Buonasera, dobra.
Nice try.
Very nice.
We will be discussing a concept of reverse mentoring that was introduced in your organization. Let's start, now I think it's a tradition, with explaining or defining what reverse mentoring meant in your particular case.
Okay, sure. First of all, I'm super happy to be here and to represent ABB in this event because we really walk the talk and we want to prove you, also what we did during this year, by the way, also with the help of Diversity Hub in implementing this. So in a traditional mentoring relationship, you have a senior person who is mentoring a person which is a junior in terms of experience, in terms of age, in terms of exposure, and so on several topics. For example, how to develop in your career, how to grow, and so on. In the reverse mentoring situation instead, you flip the coin upside down. So you have a junior person that is mentoring a senior person on a specific topic. So the beauty of the reverse mentoring is that on one side, empower, if you want to say, the minorities, but then on the other side, also put the people at the same level so that they can learn from each other and then also unlock something that in a normal mentoring relationship will not come out.
Thank you for clarifying that. Now when we have everyone on the same page when it comes to the term, could you please answer another basic question of today, which is all about why? Why your organization decided to settle such program in the company?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, when we approach the diversity and inclusion topic for LGBTQ+, which is the topic I'm leading at ABB globally, we say that if we talk about women, the situation is quite straightforward in a way that everybody in life has had contact with women, starting from your mother, maybe your sister, maybe your friend, and so on. So you may know the challenges that women have, for example, in making their career, in progressing, and so on. When it comes to the LGBTQ plus community, we decided to start with the reverse mentoring program because we said not everybody knows exactly what are the challenges for LGBTQ people. And not everybody knows what are the tools we can use to make the company really inclusive on this topic. So why not asking the LGBTQ people themselves, basically, to explain us or explain the senior leader what to do? And that was why we started with a reverse mentoring relationship.
And where the initiative originated from? Was it from the bottom-up ERG perspective or a request from the top?
Yeah, we have quite wide ERG lead. So we have teams. Sorry, we have one in Latin America, one in US, one in Europe, and one actually also in Poland. So we cover something like 900 people. But then the idea came, I would say, organically because it was a normal way for us to step up really the level of maturity of the organization. Because we said that now that the awareness is there on the topic, we need to move the needle on the senior leaders so that they can, on one side, become ally, and on the other side, we can transform this allyship into advocacy. So they can really use their power and privilege to change the company and become more inclusive.
When you were setting up the program, what obstacles have you encountered?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think obstacles per se were probably really on, not really on explaining why, but more on, let's say, maybe recruiting the people that wanted to be part of it, but just at the beginning, because then once you start recruiting the first two or three of them, then it starts a ripple effect in the organization. So more people they want to join and they see the value of it. And maybe more than an obstacle, I would say a challenge or something we noticed is that, when you do reverse mentoring, usually you try not to give too many rules of the game to the participants so that their relationship can organically grow. But we notice that, especially because you have very senior people with sometimes very junior people, put at the same level, you have also to make sure that the junior people, they feel the empowerment. So we had a session, for example, in the middle of the reverse mentoring program to say, okay, try to generate an impact. These are 10 ideas of what you can ask your mentee to do. Because so the main challenge, if we want to call it challenge, was really to make sure that every relationship was bringing home a tangible result.
You've mentioned results, and my question is immediately going to the perspective of measuring. Have you set up any specific KPIs for this initiative? How you're measuring and defining success of it?
Okay, it's a tricky one because measuring the success of DNI can be easy for certain dimension of DNI, but for example, if you take LGBTQ plus, not everybody self-identify himself or herself in the organization. Therefore, what we did was the following: we set up a set of behavior that, together with the RNG, we classify into three main steps. So the first set of behavior are what we call a new ally. So a person who supports the LGBTQ plus community but doesn't really know what to do. A second step is what we call everyday ally. So someone who embraces this type of relationship and start making the impact on his own or her own sphere of influence. And then the third one is what we call the super ally. So people that are really going above and beyond, using their power or their privilege to influence their function or their geography or their business in which they operate. And then we ask basically through a self-assessment, very similar to, you may say, a 360 form, basically their behavior that were performed before and after the program. And we noticed that all the senior leaders participating to the program, they've increased on one side the level of maturity in this allyship model, but at the same time, they've implemented actions that they haven't done before. And a couple of examples of those actions are, for example, from the simple one, like changing the email signature by adding the pronouns, to some a little bit wider, like inviting the LGBTQ plus member to be part of one of the management meeting to explain the role of diversity in the company and the role of inclusion. Another one was also about, for example, running session on awareness for their team members. And another super important one for me was to review, for example, some of the local policies to understand if they were already inclusive or not for the LGBTQ plus community. And this was really a wow, because then you really move the needle and across all the spectrum of the inclusion.
Yeah, measuring success, it's not the easiest yet extremely important. We have a first question coming in, and this is from Katarzyna. How you have dealt with all the actions for the LGBTQ plus community, not only the mentoring program in ABB, in countries where openness to the topic is limited, like Poland.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I think I can answer. Talking about stakeholder capitalism, we are really finally, I have to say, moving. If you look even outside of ABB, in a business ecosystem where really the stakeholders, they play a role, and what our stakeholders are asking, meaning our customer, meaning our shareholders, meaning our employee, for example, is really that the company must take a stand for what is right and what is wrong. So ABB took a clear stand when it comes to the, diversity, equality, and inclusion. And what we do, like I have to say, even other companies are doing the same, is really offering a safety net for people that belong, for example, to LGBTQ plus community, even if they sit in a country which is not, let's say, so LGBTQ plus friendly. So we offer, for example, events which are remotely hosted so they can join everywhere. We have an employee assistance program, which, for example, cover topics like coming out, like transitioning, like parenting for same type of families and so on, where everybody can call for free. And there is an external company which is offering this kind of support to the people. Of course, we also have the policies, which are a super strong enabler because they really create an infrastructure where even if the country politics is a little bit not so progressive on the topic, and even if the manager maybe of the person is not so progressive on the topic, the company framework allows you to progress as a person independently from these external I would say, boundaries.
Well, you've mentioned something extremely important that we've already talked about a bit earlier, walking the talk and the company taking the stand for topics they believe in. I think there were some questions we've seen earlier in our question box, which were addressing that indirectly, right? There are, our viewers were wondering what companies should do if not all employees are willing to support the decision of the company of being LGBTQ plus inclusive, for instance. So hearing that there are companies that are standing behind their values and they're walking the talk, extremely important. There's one more question I have in the back of my head, and I want to make sure that we make time for it. And it's about everyone who is listening to the story of ABB and would like to initiate something similar in their own organizations. Would you have some recommendation for those people?
Yeah, I would say the first step that we took, for example, was we starting with awareness. So explaining from different perspective why this is relevant. Okay. So, and I repeat, really explaining from different perspectives. So what we decided to do at ABB was really cool. We started explaining, for example, what is the business case for LGBTQ plus inclusion? What is, let's say, the human case, you can call it, for LGBTQ plus inclusion? What is the legal case for LGBTQ plus inclusion? And then we explain also what does it mean LGBTQ plus? How can you make an impact, for example, from HR when you uh, attract, select, and onboard the people? How can you make an impact, for example, also from the business standpoint on this topic? And then at the same time, so the first step is really about awareness. Once you get a strong base of awareness, I would say the second step is really try to find the role model in the organization, because sometimes people say, oh, we don't have LGBTQ plus people in our organization, or we don't have, for example, other minorities. So the more you move into the spectrum, for example, of other type of diversity, so especially when it comes, for example, to neurodiversity and so on, people, they really have a stigma to come out. So if you create a role model who can talk about their life and who can talk about how they progress in their career independently from who they are, I think then you can really open the door for inclusion, not only for LGBTQ plus, but you can really be a strong, I would say, thunderstorm, because you can shake the organization really why inclusion matters, and the topic of, I always repeat, celebrating diversity, celebrating the uniqueness of people, because that's what makes us successful so far.
Very, very valid points. I think we still have a moment for last question from Matilde. Which kind of topics were covered by the mentoring program? Did you have a sort of guideline for, or did you leave it free to participants to explore?
Yeah, interesting question. Actually, as I mentioned before, initially we left completely open, because also the program was organized with uh, 16 couples, globally spread. So we also paired the couple consciously from different cultures to see, for example, how shocking maybe it could be from someone from Sweden to understand the situation, for example, in another country in Latin America. But at the same time, to show people from Latin America how possible is to be inclusive, following, talking about the example I just mentioned, the Sweden case. So initially we left completely open. We saw that some couples were also quite mature, so they were evolving on topics like really education. Some of them discuss also about parenting. Some of them discuss about transitioning and so on. Some other couples were a little bit kind of shy, as I said, to ask the mentee to take an action, and that's why we came out with 10 possible actions the mentee could take to further boost the inclusion for LGBTQ plus. So the answer is initially freedom, and then we give a little bit of nudge to make sure that the impact was there.
Thank you, Luca. Thank you for this insightful talk about reverse mentoring. It was a pleasure to listen to that story.
And thank you for finding the time to join us, Luca. Thank you once again.
Hey, thank you very much, all of you. I'm really passionate about it, and I think at ABB we really want to make an impact in any country we operate. So thank you very much for this opportunity once again.
Have a good evening.